Welcome to Pat's Nostalgia. Tonight I'm going to review an RPG/adventure hybrid released in 1990 by Accolade and Horrorsoft. Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Elvira, the horror B-movie queen, inherits a nice little castle which she wants to convert into a tourist trap for horror fans. But she gets a little more than she had planned. Her meddling awakens Queen Imelda, the former resident of the castle, who died before she could finish some evil magic to take over the world. And now that her eternal nap has been disturbed, she continues what she started. Elvira hires you to get rid of Imelda once and for all, and this can only be done with the help of an ancient spell scroll and a sacred dagger. But unfortunately, both of these items are locked away in a chest somewhere in the castle, and the chest has been locked with 6 golden keys. So as you can see, the game features a typical RPG plot, and it's pretty much the full extent of the story that is told in the game. You start off in the castle courtyard, with a few spells and a lousy dagger as weapon. Wait, weapon? Yes, much like in any RPG, you have to fight enemies throughout the castle. For this, the game switches to a special fight screen, where you have the option to attack and defend yourself. Defending works like this. Your opponent will initiate one of 2 types of swinging attacks, to which you either parry or block. If you work quick enough, you won't take any damage, and you can try attacking your enemy. If you do take damage, it won't be limited to your life points. The game tries to simulate injuries by also taking away your strength and your dexterity. This may sound unfair at first, but since you can, theoretically, get out from a fight completely unharmed, you could finish the game without ever using a single healing spell. The spell system works by eating or drinking a spell mixture, which in turn gives you spell scrolls that can be used to cast a spell. Why one item has to change into another to cast a spell is anyone's guess. To create a spell, you need to visit Elvira in the castle's kitchen and give her the appropriate ingredients, which can be found throughout the castle and the gardens. To know what reagents you need to consult the spellbook included with your game package, and serves as copy protection. While most of these spells can be quite helpful, there are only 3 which are really required to solve the game. It's interesting that the main character, and namesake of the game, is degraded to a woman who basically just looks good and stays in the kitchen. Well, at least she is used for a puzzle to get one of the keys which is hidden in the kitchen. And speaking of puzzles, they are generally pretty good and usually make sense. The game uses a slightly modified interface from Personal Nightmare. The text parser is gone and the verb interface has been reduced. That's a good thing, since you hardly use the verbs anyway. Unlocked doors are opened automatically. When you take items or use one somewhere, you simply use drag and drop. You can also drop items somewhere in the castle. I suggest the kitchen to conserve your strength, which is helpful when battling opponents while exploring the castle. Walking works just like in a typical dungeon crawler in a pseudo 3D first-person perspective. The graphics are, for the most part, excellent. Some of the locations might not look as splendid as others, but for the most part I think they're great. And so are the animations, even if they're not as frequent. And of course, the death sequences. There are numerous ways to die. The most frequent might be when losing a fight. But there are a lot of other reasons that end your life, each one depicted in a grisly, over-the-top manner typical of horror B-movies. While this may sound frustrating, it actually adds quite a bit of atmosphere to the game. I mean, it's just so much cooler in a horror game when death lurks behind each step. Saving often helps a lot against frustration, and if you use WinUAE, I suggest to bind a quick save to a key or a gamepad button, as it is much faster than using the in-game save feature. Thankfully, there are no dead ends as far as I could find, so restoring a game should only be necessary when you die. This is also true for the thieving gremlins that inhabit the hatch maze. They steal your inventory items if you don't kill them quickly enough, but you can get them back once you reach their nest in the center of the maze. And yes, the game has a maze. It's not as big or complex as in other games though, and it kind of fits into both the scenario and the RPG/adventure duality of the game. Besides, it's quickly solved by the age-old trick of always walking left, and basically you only need to enter the maze once. Some of the castle's locations might appear maze-like at first, such as the catacombs or the dungeon, but they are actually pretty straightforward and mostly feel this way because of the first-person perspective and the awesomely scary music. Really, the music adds a lot to the eerie atmosphere of the game, and it's exclusive to the Amiga version. The DOS version features completely different music. Although it is not bad, I think the Amiga music fits the game much better. The Amiga also has clearer sound effects and very little digitized speech. Graphically, the DOS version is completely identical to the Amiga version. Apparently they just used the Amiga graphics, which was very common back then. True, the DOS port is generally a bit faster, but the slower pace the Amiga moves in isn't too bad. There's also a Commodore 64 version, which I don't have, but what I've seen so far, it looks and sounds fantastic in C64 terms. But in my opinion, it seems to be just a little bit too slow to be really enjoyable. So the version I recommend is clearly the Amiga version. If you don't want to use WinUAE and don't need advanced features like save states or the debuggers to cheat, you can play with the awesome SCUM VM, which even makes Amiga gameplay a little smoother. In conclusion, Elvira Mistress of the Dark is an awesome game, with pretty good graphics and a very fitting soundtrack. It's a lot of fun to explore the castle and search for the 6 golden keys. The game's biggest weakness might be its biggest strength. Combining RPG elements with the traditional point-and-click adventure might scare away adventure purists or dungeon crawler enthusiasts, but here the combination works very well. Give this game a chance. You won't be disappointed. You will, however, be scared.